I'm 79 years old. And for most of my life, I carried a feeling I never knew how to name. A quiet emptiness. Not loud. Not dramatic. Just there. Sitting with me, even on good days that I'm not telling this because I need forgiveness or applause. I don't expect anyone to fix anything for me. I'm telling it because there isn't much time left, and some truths don't let you rest once you finally see them. These days, my mornings are slow. I wake up before the sun, mostly because sleep doesn't hold me the way it used to. My body aches in places I didn't know existed. The house is quiet. Too quiet. I make coffee out of habit, even though it upsets my stomach now. I drink it anyway. I sit at the small table by the window and look out at the street. People pass by with places to be. Jobs. Children. Noise. I watch them like someone watching a life they once belonged to. That's usually when the emptiness shows up the clearest. It took me a long time to understand that it wasn't sadness. I've known sadness. I've buried people. I've stood at hospital beds. This was different. It was more like a hollow space where something should have grown but never did. For years, I assumed that was just how adulthood felt. Then middle age. Then old age. I told myself everyone feels this way when things slow down. But that wasn't the truth. When I was younger, in my 20s, I didn't feel empty at all. I felt busy. Purposeful. I had places to go and things to prove. I worked long hours at a job that didn't excite me but paid steadily. Back then, that felt like enough. I believed that stability was the same thing as meaning. I got married in my late 20s. She was kind. Practical. We weren't wildly romantic, but we laughed easily. We talked about the future in simple terms. A house. Children. Security. We both came from families that didn't have much, so building something solid felt like love. And for a while it was. We bought a modest home. Nothing special. Thin walls. A yard that needed constant work. I remember mowing the lawn on weekends, sweat dripping down my back, thinking, this is what a man does. When our first child was born, I stood in the hospital room holding a paper cup of bad coffee, terrified and proud at the same time. I promised myself I would be responsible. Reliable. I didn't promise to be present. I didn't know there was a difference. Life filled up quickly after that. Work became heavier. Promotions came with longer hours, not more joy. I told myself I was doing it for my family. And I was, in a way. The bills got paid. The fridge was full. We took vacations every few years. But I was rarely home for dinner. And when I was, my mind was still at the office. I'd nod while my wife talked. I'd half listen to the kids telling stories that seemed small to me at the time. I didn't think those moments mattered much. I thought there would be thousands more. That's the dangerous thing about time when you're young. It feels endless. You treat it like spare change. I missed school plays because of meetings that no one remembers now. I skipped weekend trips because I was tired. I told myself I'd make it up later. Later became a habit. My wife would sometimes say, "You're here, but you're not really here." I didn't argue. I didn't change either. I thought being steady was enough. I thought love was proven through effort, not attention. Years passed quietly. The kids grew. I noticed in pieces. A growth spurt. A deeper voice. Less conversation at the dinner table. By the time I realized how distant we'd become, it felt awkward to step back in. Like arriving late to a conversation that had already moved on. I focused even harder on work then. It gave me structure. Clear rules. Clear outcomes. You show up, you perform, you get rewarded. Relationships were messy. They required something I didn't know how to give anymore. I told myself this was normal. That families drift. That everyone feels disconnected sometimes. The emptiness didn't arrive all at once. It crept in slowly. Between long evenings at the office. Between short replies from my children. Between conversations with my wife that stayed on the surface. I remember one night clearly. I came home late. The house was dark. Everyone was asleep. I stood in the kitchen eating cold leftovers straight from the container. No plate. No table. I felt like a guest in my own life. But I shook it off. I always did. I was good at that. In my 40s, I started achieving the things I thought mattered. Better title. Better pay. People listened when I spoke in meetings. That felt good. It filled something temporarily. But when the room emptied, so did that feeling. At home, my wife grew quieter. Not angry. Just tired. Conversations turned practical. Schedules. Repairs. Groceries. We stopped talking about how we felt, mostly because neither of us wanted to admit how far apart we'd drifted. We weren't unhappy enough to leave. We weren't close enough to feel alive. I told myself this was the cost of responsibility. That passion fades. That duty replaces it. Looking back now, I realize I confused endurance with love. The emptiness deepened in those years, though I still wouldn't have called it that. I was functional, respected, needed, but not known. My children left home one by one. Each departure felt smaller than it should have. I hugged them, wished them luck, went back to work the next day. I thought we'd reconnect later, when things slowed down. They did slow down, just not in the way I expected. By my early 60s, retirement started looming. I looked forward to it. I imagined rest, peace, time. What I didn't imagine was silence. The day I cleared out my office, people shook my hand, said kind things, promised to keep in touch. Most of them didn't. I carried a box of old papers to my car and felt lighter than I thought I would. That feeling didn't last. At home, the days stretched. My wife and I sat in the same rooms, doing different things. She read. I watched television I barely followed. We spoke, but it felt like filling space rather than connecting. The emptiness, which I'd ignored for decades, finally had room to speak. And it was loud. I started thinking back over my life, not in big dramatic scenes, but in small ones. Moments I brushed past. Conversations I postponed. People I assumed would always be there. That's when I began to understand that the emptiness wasn't something that happened to me. It was something I slowly built.